The wind whipped around, cold and carrying that fresh, earthy scent of rain. Rohan gripped his staff tighter, the smooth wood feeling just right in his small hands. It was like a comforting friend, steady and familiar, as he braced himself for what lay ahead. He stared up at the dark clouds swirling above him, feeling the tension rise. It was almost time. He could feel it in his bones. The power crackled around him, making the hairs on his arms stand on end. For the past 3 years, he'd waited for this moment, training, studying, preparing. But now he was really scared. What if he wasn't ready? What if he totally failed? He glanced down at the worn book in his other hand, the pages filled with spidery handwriting and strange diagrams. His mother's final lesson stared back at him, a single sentence underlined 3 times. It read, "Always choose love over fear. No matter what happens, you are ready." He squeezed the book, trying to will the shaking out of his hands. He was totally ready. He had to be, this was his one shot. As the first fat raindrops began to fall, Rowan raised his head and let out a deep breath. It was now or never. With a flick of his wrist, he cast the first spell he'd ever learned, one that had seemed so simple when he was 7 and his mother had taught it to him. It felt different now, more complex, more dangerous. Lumos. Light bloomed at the tip of his staff, pushing back the shadows and revealing the clearing he'd been waiting for. In the center, a circle of stones marked the boundary. Within it sat an altar of rough-hewn wood, a single white rose resting on its surface. And beside it, a cauldron bubbled merrily, tended by a small fire. Rohan stepped into the circle, his heart pounding. For a moment, he was afraid. But then he remembered what his mother had told him, that magic was all around them, in the air they breathed, the water that flowed from the earth, the very stars in the sky. Magic was life. It was powerful. Yes, but it was also beautiful, joyous, creative. As Rohan stood there, taking it all in, he heard a voice behind him. "You are late. Turn in." He saw a tall, thin man, cloaked in shadow. A matching top hat hid the features of his face, but Rohan could see the glint of amusement in his dark eyes. "I've been expecting you, Rowan Stormchaser." Rowan swallowed, suddenly shy. "Master Eldrin," he mumbled, bowing his head. "Sorry I'm late. I'd trouble finding the clearing." Master Aldrin took a step closer. "Did you have trouble finding the clearing, or did you have trouble believing it was real?" He tilted his head, regarding Rohan with those sharp eyes. Rohan met his gaze directly. "I believed it was real." Aldrin smiled then, a slow, lazy curve of his lips. "Good! That is the most important thing. Belief." He gestured to the clearing with a long finger. "Everything you need is here. All you have to do is ask." And with a snap of his fingers, Aldrin vanished. Taking a deep breath, Rowan walked forward. Now that his mentor was gone, fear threatened to overwhelm him again. What if he couldn't do any of it? What if he wasn't really a wizard? But then he saw the rose on the altar, still white but beginning to turn a delicate shade of pink at the edges. That meant the spell he'd cast had worked. He was a wizard. He just had to prove it. As night fell and rain lashed against the trees, Rohan set about his tasks. One by one, he performed the spells and tests laid out by Master Eldrin. Each one pushed him to the limit. Each one made him question whether he was truly worthy of the title wizard. But through it all, the dying rose held steady, its color slowly shifting from ivory to blush to rose madder. Finally, only one test remained, and as Rohan prepared himself, he realized it was the hardest of all. He closed his eyes and raised his staff, focusing on the task before him. Using magic to change the weather might be the most ambitious spell in their tradition, but he needed to do this. If he passed, Master Uldren would teach him how to find and control lightning. If he failed, he'd lose his place at the Academy forever. There was no turning back. With a deep breath, Rohan began to weave the spell, his staff tracing patterns in the air, his voice chanting words of power. The storm within him matched the one above, growing, building, threatening to break free. He poured everything into the spell, his belief, his fear, his anger, his love for his mother who'd given her life to save his. Then suddenly, the sky cracked open, and a bolt of lightning split the heaven, striking the ground not far from Rohan. He cried out, stumbling backward. Was that the answer? Could he siphon the storm itself to create a miniature lightning? Of course. Why hadn't he thought of that before? But now he had to act quickly. Time was running out. The rain was coming down in buckets now, and the wind threatened to knock him off his feet. Gathering his courage, Rohan reached down toward the lightning, feeling the raw power of the elements thrumming beneath his fingertips. Closing his eyes, he envisioned a smaller version of the bolt, something he could control. Then, with a sharp intake of breath, he pulled. When he opened his eyes, a miniature lightning crackled between his fingertips. It danced around him, playful yet powerful, obedient yet wild. For a moment, he just looked at it in awe, not daring to touch it, not daring to believe it was real. But then he remembered what Master Uldren had said. Everything you need is here. All you have to do is ask. So he reached out and touched the lightning, guiding it, shaping it, calming it. As he did, the storm outside seemed to mirror his own emotions, growing more intense, more chaotic. Lightning flashed and thunder roared. But Rohan stayed focused, drawing strength from the chaos, channeling it, bending it to his will. And then he saw it, a tiny spark of white amidst the roiling gray, a pinpoint of pure magical energy. Reaching out, he caught it, cradled it, and in that moment, everything stopped. The wind dropped, the clouds parted, and a single star peeked through the break in the clouds. Rohan felt a surge of triumph, a sense of completion. He'd done it. He was a wizard. A clap of thunder startled him, and he turned to see Master Uldren standing in the entrance to the clearing, his face obscured by the shadows of his hat. "Impressive!" Uldren said finally, his voice rumbling like distant thunder. "Very impressive!" Rohan Stormchaser. "I am pleased." He took a step forward, then another. "I have been watching you, waiting for you, for many years. Rohan Stormchaser, I knew you would come." Rohan stared back, speechless, his mind reeling from the events of the evening. Uldren reached out a hand, and for a moment Rohan hesitated. Who was this mysterious man? Why had he been waiting for Rohan? All the questions he'd had since he was a small child suddenly seemed to coalesce around this moment. With a deep breath, Rohan reached out and clasped Aldrin's hand. The moment their fingers met, a jolt of energy surged between them, and memories flooded Rowan's mind. He saw flashes of his mother's face, not as a wisp of memory, but as a clear, living image. He saw his father, his features strong and kind, his eyes full of laughter, and he saw Master Eldrin, younger then, with the same kind eyes and a sad smile on his lips. He remembered him from before, when he visited his parents in their village, before his mother died and left him an orphan, before he went to live with his aunt and uncle and eventually ran away from home. Aldrin squeezed his hand, a warm smile lighting up his eyes. "You remember now, right?" he said gently. "It's all good, really. Just take a breath and remember." Rowan nodded, tears streaming down his face. He remembered everything. He remembered who he was, where he came from, and why he was here. With a shaky voice, he asked, "Why did you wait so long to tell me?" Aldrin's smile faded and he looked away, his gaze distant. "It wasn't my place, Rohan. Your parents chose to keep their magic a secret. I respected that. But once they were gone, I knew you would need more than what your aunt and uncle could offer you. So I waited until you were old enough to seek me out, until you were ready to discover the truth." He turned back to Rohan, his eyes sparkling with warmth and genuine kindness, making him feel all warm and fuzzy inside. "And now you are ready, my young friend. Now you are a wizard." Together, master and student walked out of the clearing, leaving the remnants of the storm behind them. As the first rays of sunlight touched the horizon, they disappeared into the forest. Two figures silhouetted against the rising sun, ready to face whatever adventures lay ahead.